And there's no way car companies can build roads. And if they did build the roads, they would only build roads for their cars. And that doesn't make any sense. So the government has to step in and build the roads. Now, it can charge everybody. I mean, somebody has to pay for them. And they can use companies to actually build the roads. But the government has got to basically, pay for and build the roads. And then everybody uses them. And then everything, just cars, hotels, travel, industry, everything flourishes. Well, we need to do the same thing within the accessibility realm. And we need to, and this sort of lays out the blueprint for creating the infrastructure that can really let accessibility flourish. It can allow us to have many more people developing solutions. We can lower the cost to have solutions, lower the cost to distribute the solutions, be able to have it so that it can be where it needs to be. So that's what we're on the journey for. And that's what the NPII is all about. Can we build the infrastructure that we need in order to be able to, for our countries to afford to be able to develop and deploy these technologies to everyone that we need to reach. I mean, you guys, you're the ONSE and Technosite and all of the ONSE companies are just, the rest of the world, we're just so jealous of what you have put together. And the teams, not just the organizations, but the teams, the people, the programs. But even you, I know, are saying, yes, but we can't reach everybody. So how do we do that? And how do we create this infrastructure? And then can we export it to other countries that have nothing like what we have here for infrastructure so that they can have access to? Other questions? Yes?
For using. Hello? Okay, I think you are very right about this of constructing this road, okay, for everybody to develop, okay, this kind of infrastructure. Okay, but I think because in INREDIS we also have this service as a service approach, okay, so we are in the trend of cloud computing, okay, but if we want to deliver this kind of assistive technologies, we need to interact with local applications, okay, but also with cloud applications. I think it's very important to construct this common road to have, first of all, interoperability between clouds that I think are still very far from the ideal situation, but also we need interoperability between clouds and local applications. I think this is even more complicated. And also we need a semantic interoperability, okay, to understanding each other, okay, to have a common language in order to model users, to model assistive technologies, and to have this matching between them. So I think the interoperability, technical, also semantic, are very crucial. And I'd like to know what do you think about the current situation about this topic, okay? Interoperability, technical, and also semantic.
Well, first of all, I think you're absolutely correct. But even trying to get the semantic web, if you've been following, Tim Berners-Lee's efforts there, trying to get people to move in any unified direction, first of all, is god-awful. And one of the reasons is that it goes against commercial interest. If you are a company and you own 80% of the market, you don't want to interoperate with anybody because people have to interoperate with you. So the easiest thing to do is to just buy your stuff because, people have to work with you, and if nobody else's stuff works with yours, then I just have to buy yours. So isn't that a shame? I have to buy your stuff. So as we try to work on interoperability, each company says, well, gosh, if I interoperate, then I become a commodity. I can be exchanged for somebody else's product. On the other hand, companies have flourished, like IBM, by working with standard and interoperability. Apple only began to flourish when it made sure that it would interoperate with Microsoft, and because Microsoft had the 80%. And now Apple has, charted its own direction, and it doesn't have a high percentage, but it's certainly, growing and doing very well. I just read last night that it's now the second largest company in the world. Would you believe it? And the only one larger was Exxon, and they're now projecting that Apple may pass Exxon as the largest company in the world. And it went like, where did that come from? It wasn't even 10 years ago. It was almost bankrupt. And interestingly enough, it did it by making sure that everything worked. Interoperability, and they did it by having a closed system. I mean, Apple is, they own everything, and so they make it all work really well with itself, and by making things simpler. And even the iPod, which is where really all their success stemmed from, was the iPod. Think about it. There were lots of MP3 players that did lots of things, but the iPod was a really stupid MP3 player. Go back and think of its interface. You could go up and down a list. You could open up a folder and go up and down a list and play and stop and change the volume. And that's it. You couldn't do anything else. Other ones build all sorts of things. They built in radios, they built in this, they built in that. And the iPod was just so simple that it didn't make anybody feel stupid. And based off of that utter simplicity, going and fighting, and I'm sure that only because Steve Jobs was at the helm, because otherwise all of us geeks would have added a feature. Just one, and then just one more, and then just one more. Pretty soon we would have had like all the other stuff that nobody can figure out how to use. But based on just keeping it simple, it's now grown to what it is. And they kept that philosophy. When the iPhone came out, everybody kept saying all the things it didn't do as people bought them in droves. It was all the techies kept saying, oh, but you can't multitask, you can't this, you can't do that, you can't do anything else. And everybody else kept saying, I can use it. And they bought them in droves. I think that we can take that same kind of a philosophy in terms of simplicity and try to apply it to accessibility and see if we can't, reach this huge portion we can't. But to come back to your point about how hard it is, one of the reasons I put the slide back up is mainstream industry is the first partner on there. Because you're right. If we don't have the mainstream industry, the people who are building that which we are trying to provide access to, we're dead. If we are busy on the outside trying to break in, instead of talking to them and having them leave a door open for us. And so Microsoft is one of the NPII partners, and IBM is one of the IBM partners, and Aegis as a partner for the Linux platform. And the goal is to have them so that, for example, for Microsoft, we're working with them. Right now you go to a library in the United States and they're almost all Microsoft Windows workstations in the libraries and public access points. And they're almost all locked down. So even if you have a little memory stick solution, you plug it in and it's like a dead stick because it's shut down. It doesn't let you plug things in and launch things. Even alternate keyboards on some places it would work. In other places you plug the alternate keyboard in, it won't even acknowledge that you plugged anything in. And they do this for security. So how are we going to do all this stuff we're talking about? And so we're talking with them about being able to inject just one thing, and that is a request for a profile. Then the ability to get that, and then the ability to take the PC and to temporarily change all of its settings according to your profile. And then when you leave, to change them all back. All right? Now, they can do that. We could do it, but we had to hack away at it, and every time they really put out a new release, they'd break it, because the only way we could do it is to keep breaking through their security. So every time we broke in, they'd have to lock us out. Not because they're trying to lock us out, but if we find an easy way to break into the house, they know that thieves are going to break in that same way. Matter of fact, they're likely already going to be there before us. So this ability to interoperate. And so I think we're going to do it in stages. And here's a roadmap. We do the stuff that's easy. We get working with Microsoft, for example. We get it so that we can do just the simple thing. You sit down to a Microsoft PC, all of their access features can turn on and adjust just what you want instantly. Just that one thing alone. There's an awful lot of people with mild, moderate disabilities that the features that are already in the operating system with regard to contrast and font and is all they would really need. And they don't have to buy AT or have to go. So, and then once you begin doing that, then you get the major AT vendors to say, okay, I'll do this where if you purchased it, so we have a permission, we have to make sure that we honor the ownership of their software so we don't hack in and give people permission who shouldn't have it. If the person owns it or has a license to it, and if it's on the computer, I'll let you so that you can automatically set it up with all the vocabulary and the settings. Those of you who use screen reader know that you can sit down to somebody else's computer that has your screen reader on it, and still it takes you forever to set it all up exactly like, and an awful lot of people have no idea where those settings are. I even have some advanced people who sat down at a JAWS and it was set up and they couldn't figure out in an hour and a half how to make it do what they were trying. They knew it could do it, but they couldn't figure out how to do it. And we had to go get a JAWS expert and another hour on the phone before we found the unique combinations of settings to make it behave the way it's supposed to. Somebody had set something someplace in it and we couldn't figure out how to get back to normal behavior. So that's stage 2. And then we start getting lots and lots of people with uptake, and we get you get on a kind of a roll. And then the people who aren't on board say, as a selling point, you say, well, buy my AT, it works with all of this auto personalization, and somebody else now who is not doing it says, well, maybe we should get on board. And so that's the way to do it. We have to find where we can begin and where we can do things that not just are theoretical or research topics, but the way this is going to happen is if we can structure our research and development so that it begins benefiting people with disabilities and it begins actually showing real benefit. And then I think we can get there. To get all the way to the end of what you described, that's 10 years off and an awful lot of luck, because you did a very nice picture of painting it from the realistic all the way up to the ideal where we want to be. And your question said, and do you really think you can get there? And the answer is, I'm not sure we can get to the end because we begin fighting commercial forces pretty strongly for the tail, the semantic stuff. On the other hand, if the semantic stuff does catch on for mainstream reasons, we need to be there so that we can take advantage of it. That's the plan.